always do, the unprofessional types. Tap, tap, tap. Can you hear this? Before I even start today, I'm going to show you something. This is the November 2014 issue of Men's Health magazine. Now, I read this magazine at least 10 times a year. I don't have a subscription to it, but I do pick it up from the newsstands. It's one of my favorite magazines, but this particular issue really caught my attention, knowing that I was coming here and I was going to be speaking about the title of the message, which is Plant, Trust, Harvest. Are there any gardeners in here? Yeah, I knew there was a few. How many of you, when you plant your garden, go out every day and dig up the seed to make sure that it's growing right? We rarely do that, do we? We trust and allow the season, the soil, and the spirit to raise that plant up for us, don't we? Well, I want you all to take a look at just the picture of the cover, on the cover, I should say, of this young man. He is missing an arm and has a prosthetic leg. Okay, I'm just going to run real quickly just to give you a glance at the picture. Just look at the picture of the person. Okay? Got it? I'm coming back over there for you guys. Hold on. Stay with us. Got the picture? Okay. This young man, his name is Noah Galloway, and he is the 2014 Ultimate Men's Health guy. Okay? Now, doesn't he have a great body? Six-pack and all of that? Well, this young man has a very, very powerful story, and I just want to share it with you very, very quickly. He joined the military, ended up in Iraq, decided he wanted to make the military his career. He loved every bit of it, every last bit of it. So on his second deployment to Iraq, second time, the Humvee he was in, a 10,000 pound or ton or whatever those things weigh, hit a tripwire that had been laid, and the bomb went off and threw this vehicle 100 feet into the air, in this huge vehicle. That's how powerful the blast was. And it landed, fortunately, wheel up in a canal some distance away. And the next thing he remembers was 6 days later, he woke up at Walter Reed Hospital, and he was missing his arm and his leg. And he had had other injuries as well. And of course, to him, when he realized what had happened, his life was over. He was really convinced that was it. His military career was over. He was only half the man he used to be. That was his own thinking. He couldn't be a husband to his wife and a father to his children like he had been before. He was finished. And he bought into that. Okay? And if you looked at him when he was in that condition, you might even agree with him. You might even say, yeah, this guy's through. You know? And this is happening even still all over that part of the world. People are getting their limbs blown off. And it's not just men, women too now. You know, they're in combat just like everybody else. Ending up in these hospitals and waking up missing body parts, sometimes half of their face. It's rough. And this guy was one of them. So he allowed himself to slip into the state of depression that was so dark he didn't think he was ever going to come out of it. And one day, after allowing himself to fall into this physical disaster of a body and let it get even worse, he realized one day he was allowing the part of him that was missing to dictate what was going on with what was still left. And he had gotten into the habit of smoking and drinking and just laying around feeling sorry for himself. His family didn't know what to do with him. And he finally looked in the mirror and he saw this mess of a human being looking back at him. And he had an epiphany. And he decided he was going to change it. And he figured out a way to get back into the health club. He didn't want anybody to see him trying to work out like this, you know, missing the arm and the leg and allowing himself to get to the mess he had been. So he joined a 24-hour health club, and he started working out at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, so that nobody could see him, right? And he figured out ways to use these machines so that he could take the limbs that were both missing and weak now from having spent so much time sitting around doing nothing. He figured out how to make cups and coils and straps and stuff so he could actually exercise the shoulder of the arm that was missing, of the leg, all the parts of the body that were damaged. And he managed to get himself to the picture you saw on the cover. Okay? So, how do you like that story? Goes along with everything that you guys were all, when you were lighting your candles up here this morning, you're talking about. Okay? It takes a sense of self, preservation, determination, and recognizing that there is a higher place in you, that if you touch that, you can bring yourself back from wherever you are, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Okay, lovely story, right? Don't you think? Great story, motivational, on and on. And this young man, when he came out of it, he decided that after that, he would be this motivational inspiration for others, because there are all kinds of people coming back from that part of the world and elsewhere, and for other reasons, who have lost limbs and gone through all these traumas. Okay, great, that's a wonderful story. How many of you have ever heard of this, the expression, the law of attraction? Anybody know that? Does anybody in New Thought not know that expression? Ever read any books or taken any classes on abundance and all that stuff, and that particular law has come up? Well, did you know that that law can be summed up in one word? What do you think that word is?
Attitude.
Say it out loud.
Attitude.
Anybody else?
Believe.
Haven't heard it yet.
Love.
Still haven't heard it. You don't know as much about it as you thought you did, do you? So what is that one word that will sum up the law of attraction? And if you get this word, and you're going to have it when I'm done with you today. Give. That's what attracts. Okay? Now, the principle, like God, is no respecter of persons. When you give for whatever reason, you automatically implement that law. The Bible put it this way. Jesus said, cast your bread upon the water. Always be open to giving. Now, hearkening back to the story, now that you know that that's the law of attraction in a nutshell, hearkening back to the story, the moment that young man took a look at himself in the mirror, he may not even realize this. I don't know the man, I can't speak for him, but from the story I know what he was doing. The moment he stood up and looked in the mirror and saw what a mess he had created, along with the mess that the explosion had created, and made the decision to change, he began to give himself hope. And at that moment, the law of attraction took over. He began to give himself hope. He began to give himself motivation. He began to give himself the desire and the determination to take what he had allowed himself to become and to become something better, something different, and something beautiful that could touch the world. He may not even know he was doing that, but he was. You don't have to have that intention we're talking about to make the law of attraction work for you. Because you can't make the law of attraction work. It's working anyway. It's always working. And the moment you make a decision to give anything, even to yourself, you have brought the law of attraction into power for you. And for whatever it is that you're planning on doing with your life and in your world. So he decides, he makes the decision, I am going to be different. I'm not going to allow myself to be depressed anymore. He begins to create value. Value that hadn't been there until he made the decision to do so. To create value for himself and ultimately for all of those that he touches even to this day, to where he ended up being on the cover of that magazine as Men's Health's Guy of the Year. Every time we make a decision to give on any level, we invoke the law of attraction. It's always working, but we always step into that stream every time we make a decision to give. And it isn't just about money or even talent or even volunteering, although that's wonderful and that's all part of it. Please keep giving to your congregation. It's not just about that. It's about a mindset of being in the world as a productive person. And that comes on every level. It's not just being out doing the work. Every time you get up in the morning, how many of you make breakfast or make coffee or any of that sort of thing? How many of you, when you do that, are sharing it with someone else? Okay? How many of you ever go to Starbucks or any coffee shop? Okay? I have to admit I'm a Starbucks fan. Sorry about that.
Me too.
Yeah. But every time you get up and move and you start doing something, you're giving. Okay? You're giving. Everything that happens to you in this life, Einstein said nothing happens till something moves. That's the law of attraction. Movement. As you make the conscious effort to be giving to the world and to yourself, you're invoking the law of attraction. It's that simple. It really is that simple. So we create value. And then once we understand that we're creating value, we need to become authentic about this. We need to become real. We need to become genuine. That's what this young man was doing. He stood in the mirror and he realized that the only way he was going to be able to do anything about this was to become more fully himself, to become real, to become genuine. Let me tell you something about authenticity. How many of you have ever read any books or taken any classes or any of that stuff where they said the best way to be is authentic, genuine, real? How many of you heard that? Sure. We praise authenticity, do we not? Okay, well, supposing you haven't been totally authentic up to this point. Just suppose. Just suppose. As you haven't been totally forthright and forthcoming and open and truthful and sharing your truth with the world, how many of you have been like that and you're just perfect at it? No hands? No, not at all. You know why? Because we cover a lot of stuff up, don't we? A lot of personal stuff, private stuff. We don't want to share everything. That's why the more authentic you become, this is kind of scary, but the more authentic you become, the more people around you get nervous. Especially those who have been close to you and know you in your unauthentic self. Because to them, you're real that way. That all that covering up you have been doing, that's the real you to them. And all of a sudden you wake up and you go, wow, I have been a phony here. I really have not been doing my best at being genuine. And you begin to change, and all these people around you, your family, your friends, your colleagues, your church folks, everybody starts seeing a different person. And they get nervous. They don't like that because it starts to bring up something in themselves. Authenticity is a two-sided coin. But in order for you to be fully alive and fully in this world and a fully giving person, authenticity is absolutely essential. You create value and become authentic, which is what this young man did. He began to become himself genuinely, and you know, a lot of people in his family didn't like it. They had gotten used to him being this helpless, limbless creature. And when he started to take it upon himself to become the best he could be, he had a lot of naysayers, a lot of them. But be authentic anyway. Add value and create value anyway, in spite of the naysayers. And finally, be open. You know, we always hear in our classes about the law of attraction that in order to receive, you have to be open, right? But you know, open doesn't mean just sitting around like this. It means being available. Available. That means once you understand that giving is the essential, the center point of the law of attraction, once you understand that in order to give, it means creating value, and that in order to create true value, you must be authentic and real and genuine, then you step into the possibility of being used by the universe for a greater good. Because now you know, now you understand. You're not working from an unconscious level. You're not working from an unconscious level. You consciously make yourself available to the world. How scary is that? How scary is that? How many of you in here think you don't have any talent? We just listened to Kathy sing here. Wasn't that beautiful? How many in this room think they can out-sing her? How many of you think you can sing as well? How many of you think, well, you know, I could follow along if nobody heard me? Yeah. We sell ourselves short. There's a lot more musical talent in this room than even you'll admit to yourself. We sell ourselves short. We tell ourselves we can't do it. We're not good enough. What was the song that we sang this morning? I am enough. Enough of what? Enough of what? What are we enough of?
Full of it.
What did I hear over there?
Full of it.
This is the whole point of the message this morning. You plant, but you don't dig up the seed and keep looking for it, do you? Planting is creating the value. Trusting. I want to tell you something about trust. This might throw you off your loop. I hope it does. Do you know when somebody says to you, trust God, or trust Spirit, or trust the universe, or whatever phrase you happen to like there. Trust Jesus, trust Buddha, trust Allah. I don't care who the object is. When somebody says trust, what do you think that means? If I say to you, Mark, trust God, what am I saying to you? You guys can answer this too, I'm not putting him on the spot here. What does that mean? Trust.
That you don't believe it. That God's there or whatever.
It means taking it for granted. When you pray, take it for granted that it's answered. Don't hope. Take it for granted. You know, if somebody said, I'm going to take that for granted. That we don't like that. We don't want to be taken for granted. But Spirit does. Take God for granted. That's what trust is. Hope is, maybe God will do this. Maybe. Just maybe. Trust is, I don't even think about it anymore. I am so involved and so engrossed in what I'm doing here, knowing that the Spirit lives at the center of my being. I don't even have to ask anymore. I take it for granted. Can we take Spirit for granted? Have we been doing that? Probably not. At least not as well as we could. When we talk about faith, you know, Paul said, faith is evidence and substance. He didn't say it was hope. He didn't say it was maybe. He didn't say get down on your knees and do all this stuff and maybe God will do a good thing for you. He said it was substance and evidence. And you know, very often, people miss that when it says, now faith is. Substance, evidence, taking Spirit for granted. Create value. You can make that decision right now in this moment. I will create value every day by recognizing that whatever I'm doing in the world is a process of giving. You know, A Course in Miracles says, you give but to yourself. You give but to yourself. The Dalai Lama said, now get this, allegedly. Sometimes, you know, they say he says things that maybe he did or he didn't, but I like this. He says, be kind, even if for selfish reasons. Everything that we're doing here is always for us. We're planting the seed for us. We're trusting Spirit for us. And whatever the harvest is, it's always for us. Sure, all kinds of other people and creatures and the planet and everything else might benefit from that, but it is always for us. Take God for granted. Plant. Create value. Trust. Always be authentic and know that it's always always okay, and you are enough. And the harvest will present itself in ways that you will not begin to imagine. In Kathy's song this morning, it said it might come in the raindrops. It might come through tears. This young man did not know that as he changed his mind, his injuries would be an inspiration to millions. So, I offer that to you this morning. If you get nothing else from this message, remember that the law of attraction is simply give. And when you do that, you can take God for granted. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you today.
The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.